Just a quick reminder that if you want to support Concepts and Legends, please remember to like and subscribe. And you can also show your support by using our TCG affiliate link for any and all of your magic needs by using the link you see here or below in the description. Any and all help is greatly appreciated and helps us bring you more videos like the one that is starting right now. Hello, free birds and freaks. Today, we have an interview with an Eisner-winning comic book creator, animator, writer, and soon-to-be MTG artist. He debuts in Innistrad later this year, Michael Walsh. Michael also loves playing Commander, watching horror films. Let's face it, if he was a dating app, I would be swiping right like no one swiped right before. But let's not focus too much on the dreadfully embarrassing thing I just said out loud, and instead go to the interview. Quickly! Can you hear me?
I can. How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Look at all of those books.
I have quite a collection of comics in this in my studio here.
Wow. Well, how many do you think you have there total?
Oh God, I don't know. I'm trying to think of how much can fit on one shelf. There's probably 50 per shelf. I've got at least over 1,000 books there. Yeah.
Jeez, I'm crow. And how many of them have you read multiple times?
Quite a few. A lot
right?
of them I use for reference and for just kind of to get excited about drawing. Like I'd say there's a bunch that I've only read a few times, but I look through constantly just to get inspired by the art.
Yeah, I get you. I got you on that one. So, well, just to say, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Of course, yeah, I'm excited.
And what I wanted to know was, what was your first paying gig as a artist?
My first paying gig, well, it would depend, I guess, on what constitutes being an artist. I went to the Ontario College of Art and Design in Toronto, and when I graduated, I had some gigs that were graphic design focused. So if you would consider those jobs art, then I would say probably the first paying gig was doing some box art design for some Wii games right after I graduated college. So I was doing a little bit of graphic design stuff. My first work within the comics field was a book called Comeback, which was a sci-fi pulpy action comic book that is we're working on developing right now as a film, actually. But that was my first really big public work as an artist.
That's awesome. So is it's in development or is it in pre-production? What's the standing on that?
Yeah, so right now, Nacho Vigalondo is directing. We've got the script, and it's looking great. And we're kind of just moving into the next phase of development now. There were some big articles about it. I think last year when we announced that Nacho Vigalondo was directing, and he's a director who I love and who I'm pretty excited about adapting this comic of ours. So yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it on the big screen.
Is there anybody attached to the project or anybody that you would, if you had your dream pick, who would play in it?
That's a good question, actually. I think for the main guy, Mark, in it, somebody like Andrew Garfield, somebody that has a lot of charisma and has exudes a little bit of intelligence would be good. And I think someone that has a bit of strength and fortitude for the main woman in the film would be good. Someone like Emily Blunt, maybe, who I think does a lot of things really well. Like she could be super strong, but she can also be um open with her acting, and she can exude lots of emotions and interpret characters really well. I think she's a great actress.
Oh, she is. I mean, like, well, you gotta be. I mean, I remember seeing her for the first time in Devil Wears Prada, and it's like when you're able to share a screen time with Meryl Streep, you're good at what you do.
Yeah, totally.
So, one of the things I found interesting about what you said is the whole notion of pay rates in comic artists. Like, so how does that work? I mean, what is something that if you were giving advice to somebody starting out, what would you say would be the rate that they should be going for? Is there a rate?
So in comics is an interesting industry where the rates vary wildly between publishers, and if you're doing work that it would be considered work for hire, which would be working on characters that you don't own or you don't have any ownership in. So something at like Marvel or DC, where you're drawing Spider-Man, but you don't own Spider-Man, right? So you would be getting paid per page. and the page rates are great. You know, it's a good living wage at like Marvel, DC, and then they go down as you go through the publishers. But on Marvel DC stuff, you're getting a work for hire page rate, and then on something like I mentioned Comeback or my new book that I'm doing at Image Silver Coin, I own those characters and I own the property. So on something like that, you're getting paid solely based on sales of the book. So you just are kind of hoping that the book is going to sell and people are going to be receptive to it, and then based on those worldwide sales, that's how you're getting paid. So you could be making almost nothing, or you could be making, the sky's the limit. It really just depends at that point.
So silver coin sort of that's a like no, I don't want to say magnum opus because that implies that this is the end of your career, but it seems like
Right.
it's a very big project for you. It's a very sort of like it seems like you were working towards it in as far as what you love. I mean, because you are a horror fanatic, I can tell.
I am. Yeah, it's one of my favorite genres. I find it always really interesting watching horror. Like even when I'm watching a horror movie that I'm not um I don't think is like the objectively best film that I've ever seen, I always find it enjoyable just because I love creature design. I love the way that those movies progress towards a scare, and the way that they're directed and filmed and all the acting. I just think it's such a fun genre, and I've always wanted to be a big horror comic creator, but there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for that in my career so far. I've been primarily doing superhero work for the last 6 or 7 years at Marvel and DC, and I've had a little bit of opportunity to do horror with Archie. Actually, I did a book where Jughead turns into a werewolf. It's called
Right.
Jughead the Hunger. Yeah, but the Silver Coin is my big return to creator-owned comics after doing work for hire for years, and I've got a bunch of the biggest writers within the industry. I'm writing a bunch myself, and I'm kind of quarterbacking this series. So I'm essentially show running it as if it was a
Hmm.
TV show, and we're getting to tell all these insane horror stories. I think the most comparable thing would be kind of Black Mirror, where each issue tells a new story, like Black Mirror does. But the difference would be that these are all contained within the same world, and we're building up a mythology, and there is a bit of a mystery box element. I think people are trying to figure out what's going on with the coin, why is it doing these things, and it's a really special project to me because I've been working on it for so long, and I think after working on work for hire for as many years as I had, um it feels really good to be able to say, like, this is something that I created, this is something that I own. And when I go into the store and I see the silver coin, I can think of, this is something I just came up with on a whim with a few colleagues, and now it's all over the world and people are enjoying it. So it's a really special book to me, and it's kind of marking a turning point in my career where I'm taking a bit more control and I have a bit more autonomy over the shape of the things that I'm doing.
What would be the first horror movie that you saw? Like, what was the watershed one? Because Nightmare on Elm Street was the first one that I was able to see. I think I was 12.
Yeah, oh man, that one really affected me as a kid, actually, because I
Oh yeah.
have I have really intense night terrors. I have
Yes.
very big dreams, and I even did a web comic about my dreams called
I
thesleepstories.com.
I was
And
going to ask you about that. I was also going to ask if
yeah.
you have sleep paralysis too, because it seems like a couple of those come from like because I suffered from it in my 20s and it was terrifying. And I got a sense that you might have that at the very least night terrors.
Yeah, I do. I have night terrors. I have had sleep paralysis. Luckily, not that often, but when I do, it's absolutely terrifying.
Oh, it's the
And
worst.
yeah, so I did do a comic based on those dreams and my nightmares, which you can read at thesleepstories.com. But yeah, going back to my first horror movie that I can remember, I was actually super excitable as a kid and frightened. So I didn't really get into horror movies probably until late elementary school. And I think, when I was a little kid, I would go see a movie like Hook, and in that moment in Hook where you see Hook's Hook going up the wall as he's about to kidnap those kids, I remember freaking out in the theater and running out terrified because I found it so scary. So I was
Yeah.
very affected by scary things in movies as a kid. So my parents wouldn't let me watch anything scary until I got to a certain age where I was going to sleepovers with my buddies, and we'd walk to the local store and we'd rent a few cheesy old horror movies, and we'd get candy and pop, and we'd just like, pig out and watch these silly horror movies and Adam Sandler movies. And that's kind of my first real memory of watching them. So I think at that time we were watching stuff like, I don't whatever we could find that they would let us rent at the VHS place. So we saw Halloween,
Ooh,
Nightmare on
that's
Elm Street. I think we even got Hellraiser, or maybe it would have been a little bit later, but I remember really loving Hellraiser just for the character designs in that, which I found so interesting. Um, what was the one that I would have been into as a kid? Some of the really cheesy ones that we watched were like was it what was the one Jack Frost with the snowman killer?
oh yeah, that it's actually called Jack Frost.
Jack Frost, yeah, we watched that one. All
It's
the cheesy
actually
stuff we really love.
that's a considerably well-made film considering the topic. I mean, it's not bad. Billy Bob, or it was not the oh god, Joe Bob Briggs did. I Billy Bob's Joe Bob Briggs actually did a special about that movie where he introduced it and talked about it. Pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you know what's one that I remember? I don't know if you'd consider it horror, but you, I guess you could. Is Gremlins? I loved Gremlins. That's one of the ones that I watched all the time
You know the
because it
story about
wasn't
that,
like
right?
super scary. No, go tell me.
Oh, it's the reason why PG-13 rating exists. It
Oh,
was the
that would
movie.
make sense.
Yep, it was PG, and then a bunch of parents took their kids to the theater thinking they were going to see a cute little movie about a gizmo, and then they have all these gremlins, and then Phoebe Cates talking about how her dad died dressing up as
Yeah,
Santa Claus. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, but I
yeah.
think it's horror.
That was a great one. Yeah, I would consider it like horror light.
Yeah,
PG horror, like you said. But yeah, and then in high school, every time a new horror movie come out, we would go to the theater and see it. So it was a very formative part of growing up for me. It was always an event, and it was something that we got into together, and then on my own as I became more of a scholar of the genre. Growing, like I started reading a bunch of
hmm
horror books like Stephen King and Dan Simmons um and Herman Hesse, and well, I don't know if you consider it, but I consider some of that stuff horror as well. But yeah,
yeah,
it's disturbing, I guess. But I do think that it's such a great genre, and within the comic book industry, it's I think untapped a little bit in the Western market. You see, there's a ton of very very successful horror manga, but you can
oh yeah,
only off the top of my head what a horror comic that the public would recognize would be Walking Dead, but
hmm
I think that's more because of the TV show than anything. And outside of that, just the general public audience wouldn't really know too many of the horror comics out there. So, I think
yeah.
there's a group of comic creators that are trying to change that right now, and hopefully we can bring horror comics to the forefront of the industry.
Yeah, I mean, there's all of the ones that I'm thinking of are like one-offs, like From Hell or 30
Yeah,
Days of Night, where it's like they were just these self-contained ones, or one graphic novel. They're epic, but they're not serial.
right. Yes, totally. And yeah, and there are a bunch of great ones, just like the ones you mentioned there. From Hell is amazing, and 30 Days of Night is great too. There are horror books out there, but I think there's going to be a lot more from what I've talked to about with my colleagues lately. There's a lot of books coming out that haven't been announced yet, and there's kind of a push in the direction of more unique genre stuff. There's going to be some more Western stuff. There's going to be more sci-fi, and I think a lot of the publishers are kind of pushing away from superheroes a little bit right now because I think it's a little bit oversaturated.
hmm I mean, I mean, I've been waiting for it in a sense that I've loved horror movies. I studied like, and everybody is so quick to shit on horror. At least when I was growing up,
Hmm.
because it was sort of like it was the vulgar, genre. And okay, I am willing to admit that when it's a really bad horror movie, it is
Yeah,
like bottom of the barrel. But when it's really really good, it's up there with Casablanca. It's up there with
right.
like their works of art, and people need to just people can't people don't like that. I guess I mean, I understand not liking being scared, but I don't understand saying, well, I don't like that, so therefore this is not worthy of my
Right,
attention.
yeah. I think Get Out winning an Oscar
Hmm
kind of changed the game a little bit, and I think the people that are a little bit pretentious about film couldn't say that horror doesn't have the same artistic value as drama anymore because it won an Oscar for best screenplay, right? Like
yeah,
clearly there's some kind of merit there.
yeah, he's sort of like I mean, he really did a huge like blessing to the horror like genre, because I mean, and
Yes.
I the audio commentary on Get Out, I listened to it, and he is such a disciple of like Carpenter, and he talks about
Yeah.
how he was trying to get this sort of thing going to make it look like the scene from Halloween, and I was like, okay, that's why he kicks ass because he not only did it, but he's also he's one of us.
Yeah, totally. Totally, totally.
Now, speaking of like like could be horror, but people don't maybe put it with Margaret Atwood. You got to collaborate with her on a
I did. Yeah. So we did a short, I think it was 11-page story, and the Secret Lives of Geeks, which is all these kind of personal tales from different writers within different industries, told in comic book shorts and collected in one graphic novel. And it was pretty wild considering, I grew up thinking that Margaret Atwood was the biggest Canadian writer of fiction to ever live, essentially, and being a huge fan of her books. So when I was approached to draw that short story, I was very intimidated, to say the least. But she was an incredible collaborator. She was so kind and generous with her time, and yeah, she is just whip smart as ever. And being able to tell a story about her childhood and her growing up was pretty surreal, because it was a little mini autobio comic about how she was a huge horror fanatic and she kind of hid it away from her friends and family. So it was a fun little story to tell with her.
Yeah, that's fascinating because, and it's true that she does sort of like make the point that like, not all horror fans are disturbed. In fact, most of the time, I think you're going to find that horror fans are more sensitive uh,
Yeah,
people than
I
anything.
I totally agree. Yeah, I agree completely. I think when people look at my work and read the books that I've written and drawn, especially the stuff in the horror genre, they're always very surprised when they meet me, because I think I'm not a very intimidating person. I'm pretty slight. I have a higher voice, I think, and I'm jovial and smiley. So I'm never really what people expect from my work, but I like surprising people, so that's okay with me.
Yeah, it's definitely like Wes Craven always said, like he's like I always got confused as an English teacher, and I actually was one. So it's like that's kind of how like horror nerds are. I mean, like if you are like me, where I'm total freak,
That's great too, though.
but yeah, no, I mean we gotta I gotta represent, gotta do that stuff. Now, what do you think? I wanted to ask though, the design in the Margaret Atwood story. Is there a hint of like Betsy Palmer that inspired? Like there's one shot in particular that it was like it looked like Mrs. Voorhees when she was like a young girl. I just was curious.
I actually I never really put the connection there, but now that you're saying that, I can see a bit of that Miss Voorhees there as a younger girl. But no, I actually based my drawings of young Margaret off of photos she sent me of herself as a younger woman, as a high schooler. So I based most of the art in that specifically on one image she had, like one outfit that she was wearing in one of the photos that she sent me. So she actually had that kind of hair, and
Okay.
that's kind of roughly what she looked like. I think she was a little bit more slight than I drew her, but I wanted her to be a bit intimidating, especially when she's hovering over the kids, because she's her own antagonist in that story, essentially, which is fun. I really liked what she did with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she really is. I mean, if anybody can, I mean, again, it's like, and I feel like people don't want to say that The Handmaid's Tale is horror, but it is. It's horror. I'm sorry. What are
Oh
you
my
gonna?
god.
It's not romance. I mean,
No,
and
to me it's terrifying. I love that book, and I find it incredibly disturbing, because I think that it's so close. It's an extension of the horrible things that are happening in today's society, and like we can be working on correcting those things, the misogyny that is rampant everywhere. And but it's still like, this is like the worst case scenario of our future in The Handmaid's Tale, which makes it extra terrifying to me, because it's something that you can almost imagine happening in some kind of alternate reality where things just go wrong in every way, essentially.
absolutely, it's like 1984, which again, I also think is horror. It's that dystopian reality that if we don't pay attention could actually happen.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree, for sure.
Now, how did you get involved with magic? I mean, I know you played it for a long time, right?
Yeah, so I grew up playing Magic in the 90s. I think I don't know if you remember, but like in the mid 90s, I would say, for some reason Magic the Gathering kind of like broke through as a pop culture thing that people knew about and were excited about. And at
Mhm.
my school, a bunch of the kids started playing Magic, kind of, around the same time that people were playing Pogs and Crazy Bones and stuff like that. And it was one of those things that really caught on, and people were playing Magic the Gathering at recess. And I would say only me and like two other of the kids in my grade really got into it, and we started playing tournaments actually at a really young age. I remember, my parents bringing me to the local comic store and being like, "Are you sure this is okay?" And we go down to the basement. I'd be playing drafting in a tournament or playing in like not standard at the time. It was like called Type 2, I think, or Type 1 or something like that. And it would be me, this 12-year-old kid playing against 30-year-old men, and my parents were kind of weirded
Yeah.
out by it in this
Yeah.
grungy, comic store basement. But I was so in love with the game and the characters and the art and the atmosphere. It really pulled me in because I was starting to really get into fantasy. I was reading Tolkien and Ursula Le Guin and stuff like that at that time. And so, I played for 3 or 4 years, but kind of when I got to high school, it just faded out from the things that I was interested in. And one of my friends continued playing throughout high school, and I would always ask him what was going on within the game and stuff. And then, I kind of wasn't playing it for a while, and then I would say around 2010, right when like the second Innistrad stuff came out and
Mm.
Return to Ravnica, I started getting into it a lot at that point, and I got really into standard. I was playing like some PTQs and stuff, and then when I started getting a lot of comic work, that was around when I started kind of breaking into the comic book industry. I was just so busy, and I kind of got out of it. But I had two periods of my life up to that point where I was super invested and obsessive over the game. And about a year and a bit ago, I had started wondering what was going on with Magic because I was seeing Amonkhet stuff, I'm super into like, mythology and folklore, and I find Egyptian mythology especially quite interesting. So when that started coming out, I was wondering, what's going on with Magic. And a little bit after that, I was reached out to by an art director at Magic the Gathering who was casting some comic book style creators for some stuff that's coming up in sets. And because of some of the horror work that I'd done, and he was casting for the Innistrad set, and he asked if I'd be interested in drawing a few cards, and I was over the moon because it was a bucket list gig that
Wow.
I'd always wanted to draw Magic cards, and because my style, um, at least of the stuff that I'm posting publicly, is a little bit more comic-y than the traditional fantasy painting that you usually see on Magic cards. I just never thought that I would have the opportunity to draw a card, but I didn't really know what kind of stuff they had been doing with alt art cards, more recently. So I was so thrilled, and then I was also excited because I love the Innistrad set. I love the flavor of it
Oh
and
my
that
god.
world, and it's some of my favorite Magic stuff. So not only getting to draw a bunch of cards, but getting to draw them within one of my favorite blocks or worlds within the Magic the Gathering universe was pretty surreal. And I'm really excited to be able to share those cards when they are announced. Hopefully,
Yes.
I'll be able to do some spoilers for my cards in the next few months, and I'm talking to Wizards about that now. But yeah, so yeah, it's been surreal and definitely a dream job. It was so fun and so exciting and so cool to work on. The way they send you the description of what's on the card, and you get to know all this stuff like a year in advance. So I never knew how far in advance all of this is planned, but these guys know years in advance what's going to be coming out and what the sets are going to be and how the cards are going to work. So it was really cool getting to see the inner workings and the inner mechanisms at play when they're creating the game. Um, and also seeing the like getting to have input on what the characters even look like on some of these characters was really cool, knowing that these are cards that are going to be played in the game, and I got to design the characters as well. So that was really exciting and fun. And yeah, now I'm just excited to build some decks around around the cards that I've created, because when I got the gig drawing some cards, it made me want to start playing the game again. And since then, I've gotten super into Magic again.
Yeah.
I'm playing Commander with a play group locally once a week right now. During COVID, we were playing on Cockatrice, and we were just Zoom calling with each other and playing a few games on Cockatrice. But now we've all got our vaccines. We're dosed up, I guess you
Hmm.
could say. We're
Yes,
getting to
indeed.
meet, in small groups in my backyard and play some really fun commander games. And I'm getting to refamiliarize myself with all the new cards that have come out in the last 10 years, because like I said, it's been 10 years since I've been invested in the game, and there's so many cards I want, and so many commander decks I want to build. And I think right now commander is my favorite format, because I like that, I could build a deck in Commander, and that deck will be evergreen. It'll essentially last forever, and I can implement on it with new sets that come out. But like, I have a mono black vampires Commander deck that I built
Ooh,
10 years ago,
who's
and
your who's the commander?
it is Draina, the one that pumps and gives a creature -X/-X. So
Okay, yeah,
it's
yeah.
yeah. So the commander is Draina, Calastria Bloodsheath, and it's like a mono black tribal vampire deck that has super strong high power level vampires, but at the end of the day, a lot of the wins that I get with it are from commander damage, because Draina can pump for so much, and I've got a lot of ways to build up a strong mana base, pump up Draina, get in for 20 commander damage in one shot, and start taking out it. It almost is like a secret Voltron Draina deck, where it's like I make other threats that seem really scary, so that all the removal is being wasted on them. Meanwhile, I'm building a huge mana base so that I can just one shot people with Draina.
Oh, see now, now that has me wanting to build a mono black, because I have a mono black Liliana, but
Yeah,
mine is an Edgar Markov. That was my very first like pre like bought commanders thing. It's like I bought it and I started playing in 2019, and Edgar was my first one. That was actually my credentials for Magic. Friend said you should learn how to play. I said, "Are there vampires?" I said, "Yes." I said, "What do I? Where do I get it?"
yeah, yeah. It's such a fun format, and the nice thing about it is that with Commander, um, all my decks are so varied. I've got a Calamax one, I've got a Kainos and Tiro Mellitus one, and I've got what else? I'm building a Kenrith one. It's just I love building decks and building around a theme and a flavor, and I really like tribal decks too. So it's just been really fun getting back into it, and it's a nice hobby, especially during COVID, where I wasn't able to see friends and stuff, to be able to meet up once a week with this play group online and play and hang out and have a drink or whatever. It's been kind of the saving grace of COVID so far.
Right, exactly. Yeah, there is it's a fun like way to sort of eke in like like real meaningful one-on-one experiences with people, but it's intimate. It's saying it's a but it
Yeah.
also has the game around it, so it doesn't feel like a therapy session, but it has the effects of a therapy session.
Oh yeah, totally. And you know what? Like, there is a lot of calculation, a lot of tactical thinking in it. It's not like I'm hanging out and not flexing my mind. I do feel like that I'm actually benefiting by playing the game, because I'm thinking and I'm building up the muscle, which is the brain, a little bit at least.
Mhm.
It's a great pastime, great hobby, and I'm really enjoying getting back into it. And I'm hoping nothing to announce yet, but I'm talking about doing some more cards down the road, and I was able to do a cover, which you have on your
Yes.
backsplash there, for Boom, for their Magic comic book, which was really fun. And hopefully I'll be doing some more stuff with that as well down the road, because me and Boom have a really good relationship. I've done a bunch of work with them before, and I did a bunch of covers for the Jim Henson's The Storyteller book, and then I wrote
Mhm.
and drew an issue of that as well. And I did a bunch of Dune covers. I did some Buffy the Vampire Slayer covers. So they've been really good to me. I've done mostly covers with them, but getting to do the Vraska cover was super fun.
It's
She's
great
one of my
too.
favorite. Yeah, she's one of my favorite planeswalkers and characters. I love the design. I love she's almost like Medusa, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a sucker. Like I said, I'm a sucker for mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and so I think the Medusa influence is really cool.
Yeah, it's you definitely painted her in a she's never looked more terrifying. And like she's always of like, threatening looking, but in this one she's just like you're going to be turned to stone. Like this is your last moment of not being a statue.
Yeah, yeah, and the fun thing about that cover is that all of the different statues in the cover are the guys in my play group locally. So I got to draw them into some Magic the Gathering lore, and now they're all made of stone.
Oh god, they're like, and now they're in love with you. Now they're just like bow down, bow down. I mean,
Yeah,
I would be pretty, that's pretty impressive. I mean, like that's some pull. That's some serious pull.
Yeah, I've been getting some profitable trades lately.
Yeah, yeah. Which I will. I mean, I will say this much to the audience. I know some of the cards that he is going to be playing in some of his decks because I actually traded with him, and he's a very mean boy. Very.
Yeah, I got 10 years of cards to catch up on, so I've been doing some nice trades.
Yeah, he had a list that you had a list that was like, oh wow, somebody is looking to wreck some good times.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I need to make more jank tech decks. I'm a little too competitive for my own good, and I really like high powered cards. I just find them fun to play because it's always exciting when they hit the board. But I do have to focus on some a little bit more janky stuff.
Right, you're like, I need to like okay, like a minimum of eight or like a minimum of eight is a bit much. I think maybe I
Yeah,
should change.
my Kainos deck was I was intending to make a group hugs deck, but I ended up putting in, Smothering Tithe and Ristic Study, and I put in a bunch of real mean taxi cards in there too. So it's
Not
kind
group
of like,
hug.
no, it's like hugs and taxes now. So
Oh my god.
it's super fun to play.
Yeah, my play group is very competitive, and I got the partner Kiros and Melitos, and I've not been able to even get it out because they just play their like super powerful decks. And I'm just like, well, okay, I guess I
Yeah.
I guess I can't. But
No. Yeah.
one thing that I was curious about, I won't keep you much longer because I know you do have a commander game coming up, which it would be remiss of me to keep you from that. That's cruel.
Oh no,
But
of course. I'm having fun chatting. Let's keep
oh,
going.
well, yeah, but at the same time, I don't want to. I mean, I don't. when does it start? I mean, should I? You could just like tap your hand like on like your head and be like, "That's time for you to shut up," and I'll
Right.
um like with your nightmares, how often do they occur? Like, is it a regular thing? Do you have sweet dreams?
I do have nice dreams too. I just have very vivid dreams, and I remember them really well. I know a lot of people don't remember their dreams, but whether I'm having a nightmare or a night terror or a nice sweet dream, I usually remember them. But yeah, I find they kind of come in phases. So sometimes I'll have a few weeks in a row where I have a nightmare, a memorable nightmare, a few nights a week, and then they'll go away for a month, and then I don't know, I was in a pretty serious car accident just over a month ago, and I've been
Yeah,
having a lot of nightmares since then, but they've kind of like
PTSD.
they went away, and then this week I had I think 2 nights in a row I had really bad nightmares where I woke up and my partner woke up too, and she was like, hey, it's okay, because when I wake up from a nightmare, I'm usually kind of like half in it still, I'm not completely awake, so I'm
Hmm.
half in a dream, half awake, and I'm kind of talking, and she has to kind of shake me out of it a little bit. But it's weird. I used to hate it, but I find so much inspiration in it now for my work that I don't even mind. I usually wake up from the dream, and then a lot of times I'll put it in my phone what happened, just so I remember the details, because I'm like, I want to remember that, because it was terrifying, and I was really upset when I first woke up, but now I'm like, whoa, that was a creature, or that was a weird thing that I want to remember and use as partly as an influence in something in the future.
And that's probably why like if you look at all of the like a lot of classic horror movies are based off of nightmares, and there is a universal language that dreams tell wherever you are, doesn't matter. There's some sort of symbology. I don't, I'm sure you're aware of Joseph Campbell talking about the power of myth and all that, but dreams are just like they're private myths that you have, and
Yeah.
then when you tell them out loud, and people respond to it. That's why people respond so well to your stuff, is because it's authentic. They have that similar motif going on, maybe not identical, but there's a similar experience going.
Yeah, I think that's why horror is accessible, is that fear is relatable. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing that somebody else is afraid of as you, but everybody knows the feeling of fear and knows,
Hmm.
being scared of the dark, or being scared of a weird sound you heard at night. Everybody can relate to that feeling, so it kind of unites an audience, especially when you're seeing a horror movie in theaters. When everybody
Hmm.
jumps, you're together, you're experiencing that, as one audience and one mind almost, and there's like this camaraderie and this excitement to seeing a horror movie in the theaters, and I love that about the medium, about the
Yeah.
genre as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with it 100%. I mean, watching them alone is always a fun like way to test like, okay,
Oh yeah.
how much, how much can I handle? But seeing it in a group sitting in the theater is so much fun. It's sort of like it's the same kind of thing where going on a roller coaster where you're able to get a fight or flight response from your body without putting yourself through actual danger.
Right. Yeah. I'm terrified of roller coasters, so I would rather go see the scariest horror movie ever made than go on a roller coaster. Because on a roller coaster, I feel like I don't have control.
Yep, exactly. Well, they say that there's two types of people. Like you either like horror movies or you like roller coasters. And you should try it. Ask people, just ask around and be like, do you like horror movies or roller coasters? Most of the time people are going to pick one or the other. You're going to meet very few people who are like, I like both.
Yeah, true. That's a good one. I'd be curious to see. Maybe I'll put that question on Twitter and tag you in it and see what people say.
I would, that would be a great thing. Cause yeah, you got the followers too. I saw your followers. I was like, damn,
Wow.
blue checking everything. Blue check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been promoting my work on there for so long now. Feel like I should have more at this point, but no, I have a great fan base, and I'm so I'm always very happy to chat with people on Twitter, and I'm always very flattered to even be followed by new people, because just a lot of times I'm just making comics for myself and because I enjoy drawing. So just the fact that they connect with people in any way is very makes me very happy.
Do your
And I know
fan?
that
I'm
I'm
sorry.
very fortunate. I know that I'm very fortunate, essentially, to have this career drawing all day every day.
Well, and you've worked very hard for it. Do your fans ever tell you their nightmares? Do you ever hear stories of their nightmares?
Oh, they do. Yeah, I feel like every time I post a new sleep story, people are responding and telling me about their dreams and their nightmares. And a lot of people say, oh, I would love to contribute to sleep stories, but I think for me, sleep stories is such a personal project that and I've got years and years of nightmares logged, so I'll just continue doing my own thing with that for now. Some of the guys are showing up now, though, so I
I
do
knew
have
it.
to get moving. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's we'll wrap it up. So, before I let you go, is there anything that is going on for you work-wise that you want to talk about, aside from what we already did?
Yeah, I would say for now, if you're a fan of horror, oh, you can hear my dog barking. If you're a fan of
Yeah.
horror, definitely check out Silver Coin, which is coming out through Image Comics on a monthly basis. Three issues are out so far, and the fourth issue will be coming out next month. And then it'll be continuing monthly, and you'll be able to get a collection of the first five issues come October. So that's a really special project to me, and because I get paid based on sales, I always appreciate people buying that one. And then if they're looking for things that I've done in the past, my last big project was Black Hammer Justice League, through Dark Horse and DC. So it was this big crossover book where the Justice League teamed up with the Black Hammer, which is a really cool superhero group. It's kind of like a horror superhero group that Dark Horse was doing. They're a publisher that does Hellboy. So it's a really fun book, came out last year, and that would be my most recent thing before Silvercoin to check out. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, they can find out all the new stuff that I'm going to be having happen in the next few years, and I'll probably be spoiling some magic cards for Innistrad soon. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely come check out my social media, and then you might get a peek at a new card early.
That sounds so enticing. I'm about to wet myself with anticipation. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much again. I have an awesome commander game, and I need to know how hard you win after. You just gotta let me know. Be like, I slaughtered it.
I'm gonna do my best. I'll do my best. I'm gonna make them cry before they go home
Okay.
tonight.
So good friend, good friend. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. That was a blast, man.
Thank you. You too.
A short but sweet interview. And for those who were curious about the Commander outcome, Mr. Walsh informed me that he whipped butts. Who, me jealous? What do you mean?
I didn't say anything.
I knew that. I was just testing you to see if you knew that too. And you did. So, well done. Is it hot in here? I'm gonna go lift some weights. So until next time, I gotta scoop.